Sometimes, the smartest thing a woman can do is nothing. Not because she is weak. Not because she has nothing to say. But because she knows that one emotional reaction can create a problem that takes years to undo. And that is exactly why I want us to talk about Abigail. Because Abigail was surrounded by foolishness, anger, and a situation she didn't create. Yet somehow, she walked into the middle of it and brought wisdom with her. She didn't have the loudest voice. She didn't have the power to control everybody. She simply knew when to speak, what to say, and when to leave the rest in God's hands. And honestly, that kind of wisdom is rare, especially today. Abigail's story in 1 Samuel 25 is a powerful picture of what wisdom looks like when life becomes difficult. She was married to Nabal, a harsh and foolish man. When David and his men asked Nabal for provisions, Nabal responded with disrespect and insulted David. David became furious and decided to attack Nabal and everyone in his household. Abigail heard what was happening, and instead of sitting back and saying, "Nabal caused this problem, so let him deal with it," she acted. She gathered food and went to meet David. When she saw him, she didn't approach him with anger. She didn't defend her husband by pretending he had done nothing wrong. She didn't insult David for being angry. She humbled herself and spoke carefully. She reminded David that his life was bigger than that moment of anger. She reminded him that God had a purpose for his future, and that he shouldn't allow one foolish man's behavior to push him into doing something he would later regret. That is wisdom. Wisdom is not pretending that something didn't hurt you. Wisdom is knowing how to respond to what hurt you without destroying yourself in the process. There are moments in life when you will be angry and still need to think. You will be disappointed and still need to make a wise decision. You will be hurt and still need to control your tongue. Someone may send you a disrespectful message, and every part of you may want to respond immediately. You may type a long paragraph explaining yourself, defending yourself, and telling that person exactly what you think. But wisdom says, wait. Put the phone down. Take a breath. Pray. Give yourself time to think. Because sometimes you can be right about what happened and still be wrong about how you respond. But Proverbs 19:11 says, "The discretion of a man deferreth his anger, and it is his glory to pass over a transgression." There is strength in being slow to anger. There is strength in refusing to let somebody else's foolishness turn you into a person you don't recognize. And this is where Abigail becomes so relatable. She couldn't control Nabal. She couldn't control David's anger. She couldn't control the situation that had already happened. But she could control her response. And sometimes that's where your power is too. You may not be able to control what your husband says. You may not be able to control what your friend does. You may not be able to control whether someone misunderstands you. You may not be able to control somebody else's attitude. But you can ask God for wisdom about what you should do next. Wisdom also means learning to listen before assuming. So many problems begin because we react to what we think happened instead of finding out what actually happened. We see a missed call and assume someone is ignoring us. We see a social media post and assume it's about us. Someone doesn't respond the way we expected, and immediately we create a story in our minds. Then we react to the story instead of the truth. Proverbs 18:13 says, "He that answereth a matter before he heareth it, it is folly and shame unto him." Sometimes the wisest thing you can say is, "Help me understand." Sometimes you need to ask a question instead of making an accusation. Sometimes you need to listen before you speak. James 1:19 says, "Let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. Look at the order. Swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. That is very different from the way many of us naturally respond. We want to speak immediately. We want to defend ourselves immediately. We want everybody to know our side immediately. But wisdom teaches you that not every situation needs an immediate response. And wisdom doesn't mean becoming a weak woman who allows people to mistreat her. You can be wise and still have boundaries. You can forgive and still walk away. You can love somebody and still refuse to participate in their destructive behavior. You can speak the truth without being cruel. You can say no without insulting somebody. You can leave without announcing your departure to the entire world. That's wisdom. Abigail didn't solve the situation by becoming louder than everyone else. She solved it by becoming wiser than the situation. And perhaps that is one of the greatest lessons we can take from her life. You don't always need the perfect comeback. You don't always need the last word. You don't always need to prove that you're right. Sometimes peace is more valuable than winning an argument. Sometimes silence is more powerful than a long explanation. And sometimes, the best response is the one you prayed about before you gave it. Proverbs 15:1 says, "A soft answer turneth away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger." Abigail understood this. Her words didn't add fuel to David's anger. They helped him step back and see the bigger picture. That is what wisdom does. It helps you see beyond the emotion of today and consider the consequences of tomorrow. Because anger asks, "How do I feel right now?" Wisdom asks, "What will this decision produce later?" And that question can save you from years of regret. You can be angry without becoming hateful. You can be hurt without becoming bitter. You can be disappointed without making a foolish decision. You can be misunderstood without spending your entire life trying to prove yourself. And you can choose peace without surrendering your dignity. Abigail's wisdom didn't come from having a perfect life. It came from knowing how to conduct herself in an imperfect situation. And that is why her story still speaks to us today. There is a kind of woman God is calling us to become, and she is not defined by how loud she can be, how many arguments she wins, or how many people she can make regret hurting her. She is defined by wisdom. And honestly, wisdom is becoming increasingly important because we live in a time where reacting has become normal. Someone hurts us, we react. Someone doesn't reply to our message, we react. Someone posts something we don't like, we react. Someone criticizes us, we react. Someone succeeds before us, we react. And sometimes, we don't even stop to ask, is this really worth my reaction? We simply respond because we feel something. But feeling something doesn't mean you have to act on it. That is one of the greatest lessons we can learn from Abigail. When she discovered that David was coming with his men because Nabal had insulted him, she didn't add more anger to the situation. She didn't say, "Nabal caused this problem, so let him deal with it." She acted wisely. She prepared what was needed, went to David, humbled herself, and spoke with wisdom. She reminded David that his future was bigger than one angry moment. And that is something many women need to remember today. Your future is bigger than the person who offended you. Your peace is more valuable than winning an argument. Your character is more important than having the perfect comeback. Sometimes, you can be right about what happened and still be wrong about how you respond. You can be genuinely hurt and still respond foolishly. You can have every reason to be angry and still need self-control. Proverbs 25:28 says, "He that hath no rule over his own spirit is like a city that is broken down and without walls." A woman without self-control becomes vulnerable to every emotion around her. One comment can ruin her day. One rejection can destroy her confidence. One disagreement can make her cut everyone off. One angry message can make her say things she will regret tomorrow. But wisdom creates a pause between what happens and how you respond. That pause is powerful. Before you send the message, pause. Before you make the phone call, pause. Before you post about what happened, pause. Before you make a major decision while you're angry, pause. Pray, think, then respond. James 1:19 says, "Let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath." Look at that carefully. Swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. Many of us do the opposite. We are quick to speak and quick to assume. Someone doesn't call, and we immediately assume they don't care. Someone doesn't invite us somewhere, and we assume they hate us. Someone makes a comment, and we assume it was directed at us. Then we react to an assumption instead of the truth. Proverbs 18:13 says, "He that answereth a matter before he heareth it, it is folly and shame unto him." Wisdom asks questions before making accusations. Wisdom listens before judging. Wisdom seeks understanding before reacting. And wisdom doesn't mean becoming a woman who tolerates everything. You can be wise and still have boundaries. You can forgive someone and still walk away. You can love someone and still say, "This behavior is not acceptable." You can be kind without allowing people to use you. You can speak the truth without being cruel. You can leave without becoming bitter. That's wisdom. And today's woman especially needs to understand that being strong does not mean being reactive. You don't have to answer every insult. You don't have to expose everyone who has hurt you. You don't have to post every disagreement on social media. You don't have to tell everybody your private problems. Not every situation needs an audience. Sometimes the wisest thing you can do is put your phone down and talk to God. Sometimes silence protects your dignity. Sometimes walking away protects your peace. Sometimes forgiveness protects your heart. And sometimes setting a boundary protects your future. Abigail teaches us that wisdom is not weakness. She was not passive. She acted quickly. She spoke clearly. She entered a dangerous situation, but she did not allow fear or anger to control her. That is the kind of woman we should desire to become. A woman who can be angry without becoming hateful. A woman who can be hurt without becoming bitter. A woman who can be corrected without becoming defensive. A woman who can apologize without feeling humiliated. A woman who can say no without feeling guilty. A woman who can walk away without seeking revenge. A woman who can celebrate another woman's success without feeling threatened. A woman who knows her worth without constantly needing validation. And most importantly, a woman who knows when to take something to God. James 1:5 says, "If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that giveth to all men liberally, and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him." You don't have to pretend you know everything. You can pray, "Lord, give me wisdom. Show me what to say. Show me when to remain silent. Show me whether I should stay or walk away. Help me control my emotions. Help me forgive. Help me establish healthy boundaries. Help me respond in a way that honors you." That is a prayer God welcomes. Because wisdom doesn't begin with knowing everything. Wisdom begins with recognizing that you need God. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson Abigail leaves us. She could not control Nabal. She could not control David's anger. She could not control everything happening around her. but she could control her response. And you may not be able to control the people around you either. You can't control what someone says. You can't control what someone thinks. You can't control who misunderstands you. You can't control who leaves. You can't control every situation, but you can choose who you will be in the middle of it. So the next time you are offended, pause. The next time you are angry, pray. The next time you want to gossip, walk away. The next time you feel jealous, surrender it to God. The next time you want to send an angry message, wait. And before you make a decision, ask yourself, what would wisdom do? Because the goal isn't to become a woman who never faces problems. The goal is to become a woman who handles problems differently. A woman who used to react now pauses. A woman who used to gossip now walks away. A woman who used to compete now celebrates others. A woman who used to chase validation now finds her identity in God. A woman who used to make decisions from anger now prays first. That's growth. That's maturity. That's wisdom. So I want you to choose one area of your life where you need to practice Abigail's wisdom. Maybe it's your tongue. Maybe it's your emotions. Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's social media. Maybe it's forgiveness. Maybe it's learning when to walk away. Take that area to God and ask Him for wisdom. And if this message has spoken to you, write in the comments, Lord, give me the wisdom of Abigail. And share this message with another woman who needs to hear it. Because sometimes, one wise decision can prevent years of regret. You don't need to become louder to become stronger. You need to become wiser. Be the woman who brings peace into the room. Be the woman who thinks before she speaks. Be the woman who listens before she assumes. Be the woman who knows when to speak and when to remain silent. Be the woman who knows her worth without needing to prove it. Be the woman who trusts God with what she cannot control. That is the wisdom of Abigail.